Hello YouTube, and we are continuing with chapter 9 of Linux from scratch, and we are on the configuring the Linux console. Now, last time, the last video was a little bit of a mess, and to be honest, we'll probably be revisiting some bits in here because I don't think I've done them right. However, sometimes it's better just to carry on and then fix stuff later if they're like if you run into problems. There's a lot of stuff, things might not work, but the system will boot, and that's what we want to get to, is the system booting. So we was configuring the Linux kernel, and it says this section discusses how to configure the console boot script, sets up the keyboard map, console font, and the console kernel log level. If non-ASCII characters, e.g. the copyright sign, the British pound sign, and the euro symbol, will not be used, and the keyboard is a US one, much of this section can be skipped. Without the configuration file or the equivalent settings in rc.site, the console boot script will do nothing. So, it will not be used. Right, so the console script reads the etc sysconfig console file for the configuration information, decide which key map and screen fonts will be used. Various language-specific how-tos can also help with it. With this, see. Now I checked this out last time, and I had a quick look at it. We'll just open this up, and there was nothing about. This is mostly sort of like non-English characters, because British English is kind of a bit. It's kind of the same as US English. For the most part, I think some things are spelt differently, and that's about it. There's basically U in color, and you guys put Z's where there's S's and stuff like that. So for a console, it makes no difference. So what I'm probably going to do is not bothering you. I'm just going to put the key map in and not bother with a font, because I just want whatever the default font is. Because it's going to be, I'm just going to put the key map in. So what we're going to do, we're just going to copy this, and I'm going to do I'm just going to do CD back root. And what we're going to do, we're just going to put this straight into the file here. And then I don't like editing in this. I'd rather use like Vim. I've got Vim, so and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove that, and I'm going to put the key map as 2 equals, don't want that, as UK. And I think that'll be sufficient for now. And we'll right click that, and that's that section done. Right, so now we're on to section 9.6.6, which is creating files at boot. And it says, at times it is desirable to create files at boot time. For example, the temp.ice-unix file on ICE, it should be ICE. Assuming it's an initialism and not an acronym. Directory is often needed. This can be done by creating the entry in etc sysconfig create files configuration script. This format of the file is embedded in the comments of the default configuration file. I don't want to create any files at boot. I don't. If we need that, we'll need that. Do we have that file? Is that what it's telling me there? Ah, right. Okay. So there's a file already here. I'm just going to leave this. I don't feel the need to edit this at the moment. Right. And we'll go on to section 9.6.7, configuring the sysklogd script. The sysklogd script invokes the sysklogd program as part of the System 5 initialization. This is basically logs. The M0 option turns off the periodic timestamp mark that the sysklogd writes the logs files every 20 minutes by default. If you want to turn this periodic timestamp mark, edit. Well, no, I don't. I think it's fine. And define the sysklogd params. Is that supposed to be params? The desired value. Is that supposed to be params? That might be. It looks like it should be params, but it's probably params. Probably for something else. Periodic stuff in. I don't know. That might not. Probably initialism for something else. For instance, remove all parameters. Set the value to the null value. Do I have to? Let's just cat this. Oh, wait a minute, there's console stuff in here. It did say, actually, just up here, that there's console stuff. Let's have a quick look through this. So, optional parameter for the boot scripts. Oh, I see, because this file's all commented for you, so it looks not pretty good. I'm just going to leave this as is. I'll worry about how much I want to customize this later. My goal in this is to get to a boot Linux system. That's what I want. And then other things we can worry about later. And then I can build that into maybe something else later on. My sort of attitude on a lot of this is basically get to the point where you can get it to boot. Once you get it to boot, you can see whether you've done stuff correctly or not. This feels like, obviously we ran the test suites and stuff, and we was installing the system software itself. However, I want to get to the boot. So we're just going to leave that, and we're going to skip this. Right, so we've got the rc.site file, and it says the optional etc sysconfig rc.site file contains settings that are automatically set for each System 5 boot script. You can alternatively set the values specified in host name, console, clock files in the etc sysconfig directory. If the associated variables are present in both these separate files and the rc.site, the values in the script-specific files take effect. The rc.site also contains parameters that can customize other aspects of the boot process. Setting the iprompt variable will enable selective running of boot scripts. Other options are described in file comments. Now, I've actually done this when rescuing a Linux system way back in the past, when I was doing a Gen 2 install back in like 2004 or something stupid like that. And I had no idea even what bash was. I was just like typing in commands and not really understanding what I was doing. The default version of the file is as follows. Okay. That looks like the one I just did, wasn't it? So let's just cat that to see if it's the same. Let's just see if I understood what it was telling me. It's totally possible it didn't. Do I have the diff program? So that looks very similar to the other file. And etc sys. Was I looking at the wrong script? Oh, I looked at the same script twice. I'm an idiot. Okay. So I was confusing this section. Right, so that's the RC fights. Okay, this is a separate section, but they reference the same script. It's a little bit confusing because I would imagine this would be a subsection of this section. Okay, well, I was confused by that. So I didn't realize that it was the same file. There's a lot of files here with like, you know, etc sysconfig, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. That was a little bit stupid of me, but at the same time, I think this should be a subsection of, well, this. Okay. It's not a big thing. Oh, there is a subsection here. Is that a subsection? Yeah. Right, so that's the default version of the file. Right, that's what he's telling me. There is a file there, and this is what it should look like. Okay. I wish it just said that. Very frustrating. Very frustrating. This could have been like literally like this is the, you know, I suppose it does say that. Maybe I'm just being a little bit impatient. The LFS boot scripts boot and shut down a system in a fairly efficient manner, but there are a few tweaks you can make in the rc.site file to improve speed even more. That should be further. And to adjust messages according to your preferences, grammar Nazi here, that should be further. To do this, adjust the settings in the etc rc site file. I don't want to do that. During the boot script udev, there is a call to udev settle that requires some time to complete. This time may or may not be required depending on devices on the system. If you only have simple partitions and a single Ethernet card, the boot process probably not need to wait for this command. Skip it with the variable omit udev settle equals yes. I'll leave it as is for the minute. The boot script udev retry also runs udev settle by default. This command is only needed if the var directory is separately mounted. Right, so I probably will need to. So let's bin this. Sysconfig rc.site. And what is it? Is it right? Right. So what it does, it retries it because it needs the clock. It needs that file to exist so the clock can be configured or the clock will work. Other customizations may also need to wait for udev to complete, but in many installations it's not necessary. I don't with the desktop system, a lot of people do all these like separate partitions and that. And I have on my Debian box because it's got an encrypted LVM partition. The machine that hosts these VMs has that. However, generally, if you just want to work in a Linux system, I'll just stick everything on one partition and just have a backup that backs up your home. Because realistically, whenever you're doing any of this partition madness, it's meant for. There's might be good reasons for it, but generally, like I just don't see the need for it if you're just having a regular desktop system. People say, oh, you know, I like to have my home in a separate directory. So well, yeah, but there's other ways of backing up. And I don't actually like doing that. I like to have my home like anything that I want to keep, I either put it on the network attached storage, which will get auto backed up, or I put it into Dropbox. You know, I've been using Dropbox for like 20 years now, I think, ever since it came out, basically. So, you know, other people might not agree, but I think it's just bung it all in there and have a backup solution that doesn't require. If the disk itself goes down and the home is on the same disk as your root, you're screwed anyway. So I don't. People say, "Oh well, I might use the same home for different Linux systems." So why have you got more than one Linux system on a machine? Like, maybe for trying out distros, it might be useful, I suppose. But then you'll have like those files polluting your home directory, and you know it's not ideal. I just find it more effort than it should be. Anyway, what did it say? Other customizations may also need to wait for the UDEV to complete, but in many installations, this is not necessary. Skip the command by setting the variable omit UDEV retry. Let's just do omit. Right. So what I need to do there, I can't. I can't use bloody Vim half the time. Right, so that is set. By default, we'll just write that actually. By default, the file system checks are silent. This can appear to be a delay during boot up process. Turn on the Fusk output. Yeah, I kind of want to know if it's doing that. So, oh, it's just Y. Okay. I think it should probably just check it every time. Like, it doesn't take that long typically. No, it might do on a. Yeah, you don't want that. So what it's saying here, I'll just read it out. I should be reading it now. When rebooting, you may want to skip the file system check fast completely. To do this, either create the file fast boot or reboot the system with the command sbin shutdown -f-r now. I think it should be probably done on every boot, unless there's a good reason not to. It sounds like something that you want to check every boot. It makes us, you know, you don't know. You know, the system's starting up and it doesn't know what's. I think that should be on always, the Fusk. I might look that up if there's any good reasons why you might want to not have it on. On the other hand, you can force all file systems to be checked by creating force Fusk file or running shutdown with the -f parameter instead of dash capital F parameter instead of dash lowercase f. Setting the variable fastport y will disable Fusk during the boot process until it's removed. This is not recommended on a permanent basis. Now, there is a good reason why you might want to do this. If you had a read-only file system, then it should be changing, right? And there's no point in trying to change the. You shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't need to check the disk. I'm guessing if it's read-only. I'm assuming don't know how that'll work. Like, obviously, there's no. Could the file system get corrupted if it was a read-only file system? Possibly. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's. I think there'll be hardware error involved. Okay. Anyway, that's something I might look up in my spare time. That's a question for another day. Normally, all files in a temp directory are deleted at boot time. Depending on the number of files or directories present, this can cause a noticeable delay in the boot process. To skip or remove these files, set a variable called skip temp clean equals y. I'm not going to do that. I think they should be removed. And I've got a very fast disk. And typically everything I've got is an SSD, so I kind of don't care. During shutdown, the init program sends a term signal to each program it has started, e.g. a jetty. Now, I've heard of that before, and I didn't know what people were talking about. So this is what this does. Waits for set time, default 3 seconds, and sends each process a kill signal, waits again. This process is repeated in the set signal script for any process not shut down by their own scripts. Delay for init can be set by passing a parameter. For example, to remove the delay in init, pass the -T0 parameter when shutting down or rebooting. Delay for setting the signal script can be skipped by setting the parameter kill delay with 0. It should probably have a delay. Things need to finish up what they're doing. So I'm going to right quit out that. I think it's good. And then we're going to do configuring the system locale. So it says some environment variables are necessary for native language support. Set them properly results in the output of programs being translated into your native language. Okay. The correct classification of characters into letters, digits, and other classes. This is necessary for Bash to properly accept non-ASCII characters in command lines in non-English locales. Okay. This is another weird case where ENGB, I don't think any of this, like maybe the pound character, but will Bash deal with a pound character properly? No idea. The pound character, if you try putting it into like a JavaScript terminal, I'll just show you. This is where I normally live my life, is in a JavaScript terminal, unfortunately. And you put a pound in here, it doesn't understand, but it does understand dollar. Invalid or unexpected token. Like if I do dollar equals undefined. Right, that's just, yeah. So why does it have dollar as native code? I'll have to look at what's happening there, because dollar is usually jQuery. So so anyway, that's total digression. The correct alphabetical sorting order for the country. Yeah, so this is basically just puts everything in the correct order. Like if you got a Spanish alphabet, they got like I think NA and the LL character, which I forget what it's called. There's special characters. I know NA definitely is. Not sure about LL actually now. And then they've got accents and stuff. So I'm not sure how they're handled. You know, at the end of the day, I'm English. And English is and American English and British English are pretty much the same. The appropriate default paper size, like whatever. The correct formatting of monetary time and date values. Yeah, that's like kind of important. I find American dates really confusing because it's just the wrong way. It's just the wrong way round. Monetary is, yeah. So if you're in I've lived in Spain for a bit, and they'll have like that instead of, so if something was £100 or it'd be like that in the UK, but it'd be like that in Spanish on the store shelves. So they have a comma instead of a dot, basically. Right, replace the LL below with a 2-letter code for your desired language, e.g. EN, and then CC with a 2-letter code for the appropriate country, e.g. GB. Char map should be replaced with a canonical char map for your chosen locale. Optional modifiers such as Euro might be present. I do have a Euro on my keyboard, and I don't think I've ever used it. The list of locales supported by glibc can be attained by following the running the following command. Now this is So if I do hello grep GB en. All right, so there's. I usually just set this one. Everything all works. All locale supported. Yeah. Char maps can have a number of aliases, e.g. ISO, blah, 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 blah. It's also referred to ISO, another ISO. Some applications can handle the various synonyms correctly. Require that UTF-8 is written as UTF-8, not UTF-8. So it is the safest, most options. Choose canonical name for the particular locale. To determine the canonical name, run the following command where locale.name is the output of the. Right, okay. So it's ENGB. Oh, char map. So this is the char map. By the looks of it, I reckon if I do ENUS, I bet that's the same char map. Yeah, it's exactly the same char map. So does it have the American char map? Does it have a? Would that have the pound sign? The UTF-8. Okay. Oh, I'll put UTF-9 there. This says UTF-8. Okay. So we want that ISO. So let's just have a text editor open. And we'll just put that in there. Just in case I need it. Oh, God. Come on. I know there's better ways to copy and paste in. However, my muscle memory is kind of broken because I have to use Windows at work. So, unfortunately, I'd rather not use Windows at work. But unfortunately, that's what we all have to make sacrifices. Right. Right. So, right. So, yeah, we just tried that out and it prints that. So, there was. So, for all ENGB, ISO 88591 locale, the above output will print. Yeah, that's basically what we got. Oh, I did that without. I basically did what. Okay, that's fine. This results in a final locale setting of engb.iso-8859-1. It is important that the locale found using the heuristic above is tested prior being added to the bash startup files. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm going to cheat, because I don't want to type out all of that. And I'm going to do no, I want that's stupid. Did that. You think, oh, this isn't a bad little text editor, and that's stupid stuff like this. Right. What's it? ENGB? Yeah. All right. All right. I know this is like a really jank way of doing it, but I think this is okay. It's just like, whatever. All right, there we go. And then I roughly know what that is. And then I can run it again as well. So, right, the above command should print the language name, the character encoded used by the locale, the local currency, and the prefix to dial before telephone number in order to get into your country. So yeah, and if you're in the UK, it's +44. If it's another country, it's probably something different. Can't remember what Spain was. I know Gibraltar was like 36 or something. If any of the commands above fail with a message similar to one below, that means your locale was not installed in Chapter 8 or is not supported by the default installation of glibc. Well, it is. That's not relevant because if this happens, no, well, it's fine. Right, the shell program being bashed here after return to the shell, yeah, basically bash, uses a collection of startup files to help it create the environment to run in. Each file has a specific use and may affect login and interactive environments differently. The files in the etc directory provide global settings. If the equivalent files exist in home directory, they may override the global settings. An interactive login shell is started after successful login using bin login by reading the etc password file. An interactive non-login shell started at the command line, e.g. prompt bin bash, and non-interactive shell is usually present when a shell script is running. It is non-interactive because it is processing a script and not waiting for user input between commands. Yeah. So you usually have that bash prompt syntax. Maybe it's something to do with that. I find this all really confusing because in my head, it's some code gets run by an interpreter, which happens to be bash. That's basically how my mental model of it, and I know that's incorrect. However, what I do daily is I run commands and it interprets it, or I run a script and it interprets it. So the difference between these. Oh, right. So the login shell gets run when you, yeah, that makes sense. So you can, by the way, if I go in here, there's a setting in here somewhere. I can have it run as a login shell every time. Typically want that off. I've had that actually work on OpenBSD because it was I couldn't work out what the corn shell was doing. So I'll just put that on and just everything started working. I know that was probably not the right way of solving it, but it solved my problem at the time. And I ditched the installation of like, it was in an installation of VM. I was mucking around with it for some reason. I can't remember now. Right, so yeah, we read that bit. Create the etc profile once the proper locale settings have been determined to set the desired locale, but set the CUTF-8 locale instead if running in the Linux console to prevent programs from outputting characters that the Linux console is unable to render. So create the etc profile once the proper locale settings have been determined. Well, we know what those are. So just determine them. But set the CUTF locale instead if running in the Linux console. Oh, right. Okay. Let's describe it. This is a little bit confusing. Okay, that's fine. So we want to copy and paste that basically. All right, so this is what this does. So if you read this script, let's just make this a little bit bigger because my eye's very tired today. It says begin etc profile for so it looks for the young locales, and then it unsets a variable by the looks of it, which is the locale. And if the term is Linux, and then it sets the lang. Okay. So does it want me to? Oh, right. So it wants me to put my. So I can make a British English Linux distro. Okay, so I need a. I'm going to put this in and Vim edit it again. So I'm just going to put this in. So. Right, he has a weird way of explaining it. This is just what it. So that'd be lang. That's the. Is it what they call it? That's a lang. Oh, country code language. What was it? Why is it called LL? Don't know why it's called L. So let's just dim this. I don't care. I'm not going to have any bloody modifiers. What was it? That was that ISO blah blah blah. So it was this one. It's just just put it in here to make sure I didn't mess it up. Oops. So that's the charmer. Okay. That'd be lowercase or uppercase. Does it matter? Looks okay to me. Right, there's the C default of the ENUS recommended one for English United States English users. Locale's different. C uses the US ASCII 7-bit character set and treats bytes with the high bit set as invalid characters. That's why e.g. the ls command substitutes them with question marks in the locale. Also, an attempt to send mail with such characters from a MUT on Python results in a non-RFC conforming message being sent. Everybody does that, yeah? The char set in the outgoing mail is indicated as the unknown 8-bit. That's like an interesting tidbit, but it's whatever. It's suggested that you use the C locale only if you're certain that you'll never need 8-bit characters, okay? Creating an etc inputrc file. Inputrc file is a configuration file for the readline library, which provides editing capabilities while the user is entering a line from the terminal. It works by translating keyboard inputs into specific actions. Readline is used by Bash and most other shells, as well as many other applications. Now, readline is like something that's super, super fundamental. And if you ever look on the like OS Dev wiki, and you go meaty skeleton, they have a listing from readline, I believe. Oh no, I don't want to do that. Maybe it's even more basic than that. Maybe it's on the. Like the bare bones. I think there's a readline listing. The read line in here. Nope. They got the. I'm absolutely sure when I was having a look through this, because I was like, shall I do this for a video? Like start off doing this stuff and get more involved with it, but it's well over my head at the moment. I'm pretty sure though there was a definition for read line in one of the I'm absolutely sure there's one of the pages, but that's another digression. Most people do not need user-specific functionalities. The command below creates a global etc input rc used by everyone who logs in. If you later decide that you need to override the defaults on a per-use basis, you create an input rc file in the user's home directory with modified mappings. Yes, I've done this. I can't remember why though. For more information on how to edit the input RC file, see info bash under the readline init file section. Info readline is also a good source of information. So yeah, these are the info pages for each one. So if you go into Debian, I'll do info readline. Oh, I might. Do I not have info pages? Yeah, well, there's a man page entry. So there's it's like a pretty fundamental thing. Below is generic input RC along with comments to explain what the various options do. Note that the comments cannot be on the same line as commands. Create the file using the following command. So, okay, nothing really to do there, I think, other than just create it. So we're just going to copy that. Make sure we've done that properly. Oh, that's not right. I copied a bit of something else. Why did it put the... I think the terminal just messed up. Right. So it says creating the etc shells file. Shells file contains a list of login shells on the system. Applications use this file to determine whether a shell is valid. For each shell, a single line should be present, consisting of the shell's path relative to the root of the directory structure. Now, yeah, there's other shells other than bash. Obviously, there's Z shell, corn shell. Guy who did the anyway, there's other ones that you could probably put in here and install. For example, this file is consulted by the shish to CHSH to determine whether an unprivileged user may change the login shells for her own account. Is this a woman who wrote this? If the command name is not listed, the user will be denied the ability to change shells. Okay. It is a requirement for applications such as GDM, which does not populate the face browser if it can find. What a strange sentence. If it is a requirement for applications such as GDM, which does not populate the face browser, if it can't find the the face. Okay, there's a file in here somewhere called this, and that shows your logo. So if you put your own face in there, is that what it's talking about? So there'll be a load of users on the system, and they'll have like the actual like avatar that they have or their face, or FTP. Is that what it means? I guess so. or the FTP daemons, which traditionally disallow access to users with shells not included in this file. So we just make this, I guess. And we'll just cat that. I'm a little bit paranoid. It's not. Okay, that's good. We are on chapter 10. So this will be fstab, Linux, and grub. So I suspect compile the Linux kernel will be the big one in this chapter. So anyway, we got to the end of chapter 9. Hopefully this was made more sense than the previous part, because I'm feel a lot better today and don't have a banging headache. So hopefully people found this interesting, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. So bye-bye.